1, 2, 3. Tag it. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Well, all right, there you go, folks. That's it. We're done. Hey, this is Bill McGoldrick again. This is episode 7, I believe, and you've been going through all these, and I'm very proud of you people. I know you've been practicing, like I told you, 1 hour a day, 5 days a week for 4 weeks. Give me 20 hours and you'll be good. Sure. And that's all I'm saying today. So today we're doing a little bit different. We're getting away from the ABCs with guitar playing, and really for the next number of episodes, I'm going to be bringing you the best guitar players, jazz, rock, folk, whatever is out there, country guys. And I think you're going to really enjoy this sort of thing. And today I have John Paolilli, whom I've known for the past 10 years or so. He's a guitar player with the Road Dogs currently, and just got off the road with Aaron Owens. So we're going to get a little bit into some of John's background, and we'll jam a bit here, and we'll just take it from there. So welcome, John. I really appreciate you for coming by here, and it's a beautiful Les Paul. We'll talk about gear, because we're guitar players, and out of any other kind of musicians, I think we're the sickest people when it comes to instruments and what we do. So if you could just start at the beginning, man. Where are you from, and why did you do this crazy thing? You could have gone to finance and made millions of dollars.
You know, so I'm originally born and raised in Lowell. I moved to Pepperell, Massachusetts, when I was around 13. Got the guitar, and
What year? How old were you when you got a first guitar?
My first guitar, probably right when I was 12 and a half, 13 years old.
Which is older a little bit. Some guys are 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think
Were you listening before that?
Always. We always listened to music in my family. So it was always around. So we never really, it was just a natural progression for me. In fact, me and all of my brothers, I have 3 younger brothers, we're all musicians.
Right.
So,
and you play with one of your brothers, and I want you to talk a little bit about that. So
sure,
cool.
Sure, yeah.
So you were the first, before them?
Before them, I was also the oldest, so
right.
kind of fell into that. And so, I started playing, and I took to it like I didn't take to anything else. I did baseball, football, a million other things, and I did those, and they were fine, but guitar, I was like obsessed. I couldn't wait to get home from school to sit down and practice. I would turn my regular lined paper into music treble clef and write ideas and little melodies and stuff like that, and then try to go home and play them.
Yeah.
So I was obsessed with playing guitar, and yeah, I took to it, and I realized at a pretty early age I was getting pretty decent. You know, I started figuring things out, and I started understanding the theory and stuff.
15, 16?
Yeah, I would say probably freshman, sophomore, high school. And
any band stuff in high school? Any, like legit reading and all that kind of stuff?
Jazz band. I had a great teacher, Lou Stamus,
great.
and I mean, he's a big band guy through and through, and he let me come and join the jazz band.
What high school was that?
North Middlesex in Townsend, and he was like, you know, he gave me printouts, so you got to learn your 13s and your 9s.
Right. And I use that chord all the time.
Oh,
because it just sounds good.
You know, and so I started learning that, and then that developed into, I can probably do something with this, you know, and more importantly, this is what I really wanted to do. I was good in math, I was good in science, I could have probably, like you said, done finance or engineering or architecture or something.
Which is the easier way to go in some ways, and nothing against you finance types or
No.
whatever. Art, I don't care what art you're talking about, is hard. And it's difficult to make a living.
You know, it is, but I looked at it as if I work hard and I practice and I get good and I'm not afraid to take risks, then I'll be all right. And, you know, so I mean, to this day, I don't work a regular job. I do music 100%, whether it's touring, teaching, GB gigs, weddings, whatever it is. I do music all the time.
It's interesting. I think the world that we're in right now, it's never been easier to kind of patch together various income sources.
Of course, you know, and I had a bunch of people when I first came out of school, they said, you know, you want to have as many different things going, whether that means teaching in multiple schools or stores, working for multiple bands, don't be afraid to do that. And so I took what they said to heart, and I went and did that. I worked for everybody from the Peach Eaters, the Road Dogs, to, I mean, Aaron Owens, you know, a country band, which is, you know, so
I want to get
different.
into that. So you were 16 or 17, and you're looking at colleges.
Of course.
And both John and I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and me in the last century, way back when. But tell me about that. You were looking at colleges.
So,
senior year came. Were your parents supportive?
100%. 100%. You know, in fact, I knew I wanted to do Berklee. I was lucky enough to do the World Scholarship Tour. I did a lot of things, so I understood what was going on there. And my parents, you know, they were like, why don't you take a look at a few other music schools in the area? So we went down to Hart in Connecticut, and we went to UMass Lowell, and I think UNH.
Which is a good school. I've played with a bunch of guys from there, yeah.
Oh yeah, they're great schools. I really thought that they were good for what they were doing, but I knew for a fact that Berklee was what I needed to do. I remember actually I got, when I went to the scholarship audition, I got one of the programs that had all the different classes, and I remember seeing a Jimmy Page lab and a Jeff Beck lab, and I was like, Hart doesn't have that, you know. UMass Lowell doesn't do that. I'm like, this is the school for me. Those are my guys. You know, I love Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck. So, of course, later on, I would end up taking those courses.
Yeah.
So it was good.
And so you applied, and I know you've done a ton of. I don't want to get sidetracked, but you've done a ton of videos. You've got over what I saw, 118,000 views.
Yeah, quite a bit.
I think you had like 9,800 on one, which is unheard of.
You know, it's so weird that you mentioned, because I remember when I first made these videos, what my goal was I was bored with my improvisation. I was sick of playing the same licks. So I think everybody goes through this phase. So I made this rule to myself: I'm going to record all my basic stuff, and so that way I can't do it again. You know, that way I have to force myself to try something new, because it'll be a record of me playing. So if I have a video of me doing that, then if I do that again, then I'm being boring. I'm not doing actually improvisation.
And some of these big videos that you got a huge amount, 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah. I got really hardcore into trying to transform my playing and develop into something different, bring in not just more scales, but just different ideas. It's hard to explain what I was really thinking, but I don't want to say I wasn't happy with my playing, but I knew I needed to do something different and something better for me, something that was more representative. Instead of playing the Van Halen licks, do something cool. You
know, it's interesting on YouTube. If you put anything out on YouTube, you know, you're just asking for it. It's just the nature. There's just negatives, people out there, and you get those. You know, and I've got, I think, about 66,000 views in 12 years. I got 32 dislikes.
Yeah.
And what do I focus on? The 32 dislikes. Well, not the hundreds of the hundreds of likes. But
yeah, of course. You know, and just yesterday, my my brother, his band got signed to a label, and
Really? I'd
yeah,
like to talk about that. Yeah.
I mean, they're a very heavy metal band, but people were saying something. I remember me and him were laughing at all the comments, and me and all my brothers actually laughing at it. And one of the guys said, "Oh, these guys never tour," and it's funny because my brother's band tours like 48 weeks a year. They're home this much, they're on the road that much. So clearly
Really?
the internet, it's as good as it is, there's a lot of that negativity of people that are just
You just got to deal with it. You just roll with the punches because and what is your YouTube page? What's it called?
It's just my name. So it's youtube.com/John Paolilli.
Right, and like I told John earlier, I've known him for about 10 years, since he was a young whippersnapper, but I've been mispronouncing his name the whole time. So you got into Berklee, and I saw you did a video on how to get into Berklee.
Yeah.
And can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I got into when I started teaching was coaching students how to get into the music schools, not just music schools, but even bands. And what you want to be able to do is control the variables, and that means to not only know your scales and your chords and make sure your guitar is tuned or all that stuff, but your prepared piece should be mastered. You shouldn't be working on your prepared piece the week of. It should just be muscle memory at that point. The thing is you don't know what they're going to ask you for sight reading. You don't know what they're going to ask you to improvise over. You don't know. I mean, you could walk in and you've been at home practicing on a Fender Blues Deluxe, and you walk in and you're playing through a line 6. Those are things you can't control. So everything you can control, you need to have down to the point where if you get nervous or whatever, you play through it. And I actually learned this when I auditioned for All States in jazz band in high school. I had this tune, it was Cherokee, that old standard. I had it down at home, and I went in and I heard all these other guys playing it so fast and clean, and they're playing on arch, arch
I forget
stops.
that tune. I remember how fast it is. It's, da, 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 da. It's one of those things like that. Coltrane did it like 1,000 miles an hour.
Exactly. So I'm hearing all these kids playing it on the big jazz boxes, and I'm playing my Les Paul, and I start getting into my own head, and I didn't do so hot basically because of that. And so when I left that audition, I'm glad I had that audition. I'm glad that it failed, because when I went to go audition for Berklee and all these other music schools, I knew that if I didn't, I needed to have it down so cold that even if I did get nervous, if I did hear someone who was great, it didn't matter. It was just going to be muscle memory. Fast forward 10 years later, I'm out auditioning for bands like Aaron Owens or various other artists. If I just know I memorized the material, it doesn't make a difference. I can go in there and it can be 110 degrees with 100% humidity, and my guitar can be coming out of tune, but I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
I call it scar tissue.
Yeah.
You develop scar tissue by failing.
Yeah.
Failing's good, because it's usually an educational opportunity. So you went to Berklee, and Berklee's pretty intimidating, especially for a freshman guitar player.
100%.
Because you throw a rock, you hit what, 20 guitar players?
Oh, everybody in all my classes were guitar players. I made some great friends, don't get me wrong, but there was competition everywhere. And I actually remember on my second day, I had an ensemble class where the teacher said to me, if you're here and you're not practicing 6 hours a day, you need to unenroll. And if you're a performance major and you're not practicing 8 hours a day, you need to change your major.
And by the way, I was a music ed degree person, which was a little bit safer, than the performance folks are the best in the school. They are the ninjas. They're the warriors, and it must have been cutthroat. It must have been pretty tough, especially now.
It was, and the biggest thing is that you're meeting people, the best of the best from all over the world. It wasn't just local guys, the local clubs playing. I was meeting kids from Japan, Australia, England, Italy, that were just mind-blowingly great.
Right.
And so every time I'd hear them practice, I need to go home and sit down, and I would end up staying up to 4 o'clock in the morning practicing my licks and trying to get a little quicker, a little cleaner, memorize more scales, play over a difficult change, whatever it was. And that little bit of competition, not that it's about that, but that little bit, especially when you're young, 18, 19, you still have that really shaped who I would become as a musician later on.
It's interesting, but don't let that, for the younger people out there, don't let that get you down.
No.
Everybody has their own style, their own voice, their own way, a legitimate way of playing music. I mean, if you sit around, Joe Pass, probably the greatest guitar player of all time.
Yeah, of course.
If you listen to him, you might want to just say, okay, go get that accounting degree down the street because you're never going to be that guy. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. You know, you go from Jimmy Page to Larry Carlton to whomever. I love it all.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? So tell me, so you graduated Berklee, and tell me where you went after that, and really what you're doing now.
So I went right into playing for, cover bands, GB bands, things like that, and
Around here, Greater Boston.
Greater Boston. Yeah. I had a couple of original projects going on. I would play for anybody that would hire me. So like I said, I got a lot of great gigs out of it. And I wanted to start touring. So in the last couple of years, I started seeing what was going on, putting my feelers out there, letting my friends know I wanted to do that. Right. And luckily, Aaron Owens called me up. He said, hey, I really need a guitar player. And he's not pop country, he's a little bit more traditional country, but he wanted to bring a little bit of a rock edge to it. So he said, I want you to, here are 5 tunes, record them, send them back to me, and let me know what you think. And do what you do. Like, don't change anything at all. Bring your thing to it. And he called me up. He said, yeah, I love everything you're doing. Let's hit the road. So we went out. I went out 2 years ago. We did, 12 weeks. Went out last year. Probably did about 10 weeks.
Yeah, I've been following you on social media. It seems like cool gigs.
Great
Seems
gigs.
like nice stages.
Oh,
house PAs, so with a sound man type thing?
Usually sound man. Sometimes house PA. Sometimes we have to bring our own gear. But at the end of the day, I get to play across the whole country. I get paid to do that. And I get to see everything. I've been to Key West, I've been to North Dakota, I've been out west, I've been to Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, everywhere you could think of, Mississippi, Louisiana. So all just for playing guitar. So that's pretty amazing to be able to do, and have a great time with it too. So.
And you never know, again, for the younger people, that you never know what connection is going to bring you.
Yeah.
This sort of a national connection could easily parlay itself, and that's how folks do it in our business right now. It's just I'd say 30 or 40% is playing. There's talent. Everyone's talented out there. If you're not, forget about it. But it's 60% being a good guy, getting along, being reasonable, and easy to work with.
100%.
You would have the greatest guitar player in the world, and usually there's a ratio of great guitar players to egos. It's interesting. When I went to Berklee in the 70s, Chick Corea was teaching there, Gary Burton, Pat Metheny, and some of the guys from the 40s and 50s. Great musicians, and I noticed there's something interesting. I think once you reach that level and you look over the top and you're that Gary Burton level and you realize even Gary Burton, there's so much more that he can learn and he needs to learn, that they make the greatest ones. My opinion has been the greatest ones were humble, But sometimes with guitar players, ego gets up there, and guess what? Ego costs you money, costs you gigs, and again, this sort of thing, I think that's really key. What you're doing right now is getting your name out there.
Yep.
And you don't think you have to move to a Nashville?
It's possible, but now that I have no problem flying, and a lot of the gigs these touring artists, especially the ones I've been working for, we don't really rehearse. You're expected to show up knowing the material. We might get to the show, or we might have like a day or two to rehearse. It's not like we're doing week-long rehearsals like a lot of bands used to. It's at the point now where you're really expected to know the material before you show up to the gig. Right. And
the rest of the musicians are that hip too? The bass player, the drummer. Are they regular players for that particular guy, Aaron Owens?
That's what we were dealing with. Generally, the regular guys on 2 tours ago, or the middle tour that I did, the second one, we had a different bass player, but it was still expected that he showed up and knew the material hard, because, like you said, there are a million talented people out there. It's really all about the being a cool guy, being a good person to be around, and not that the bass we had to switch him out or whatever. He had some other commitments that he had to do, but yeah, if you don't know the stuff, they can find somebody with
now. Is he signed?
Fingers. He was signed for a while. He's now I don't know. I don't want to get too much into what he's doing for business, but there's some things going on in the works there. So
cool.
Yeah, he's
got a couple
records
call for that. Yeah. Now, what are you doing locally here? I know you play with a band called the Road Dogs.
Yeah,
right?
we actually we play a lot of gigs, a lot of bar band stuff where it's great. We get to play places like Battle Road. I think you played Battle Road.
Yeah, I love that place.
It's cool venue. We did the British beer companies when they were still around. We do a lot of corporate stuff. Bolton Street and up in Marlboro quite a bit. Morse Tavern.
And it's loose enough that you can go on the road for a period of time, and there are a few guys who can fill in for you.
Yeah, I'm really lucky to have a good network of friends of guitar players that, not even just me, but the band. They know they have got some friends that they call in for me whenever I'm away, and they they're cool with it. They're actually happy to see me go, which is really, really important.
You know, what John's great at, and I'm not that great at, it's just in my nature, I've just never been this type of person, is getting exact licks. I never really cared. I'm like, what's the key?
Yeah.
It's an A minor? Okay, I can do better than that guy, whatever. But he is really good. Can you just show some of those Led Zeppelin licks you were just showing?
Sure.
He's amazing at this.
So we're really lucky in the Road Dogs. Our singer does a great Jimmy Page, and Robert Plant. And so when she came into the fold, I was like, I need to get down and learn these Page licks. So the Whole Lot of Love thing,
I love that, man. I love that. So what are your goals? What's going forward? What is new, and where are you at right now?
So right now, I really want to I want to continue to tour. I want to get to a higher level of touring. You know, and there's nothing wrong with Aaron. He's a great guy, but I want to maybe move to a little bit away from the country thing again. I had fun doing that, but I think it's time to shift back towards.
We never even talked about your influences. You're a Van Halen guy, right?
100%.
Which I missed. I totally missed it. I didn't get it. I was like a jazzer, I'm like, what is this stuff with the? Can you show them some of the? I can't even do this stuff.
So
I can't do it. I just can't do it.
That type of thing.
Yeah,
and the other thing that's cool, one of the ones that no one really does, is the. Where you tremolo pick a high string and hammer on the lower string. I always loved that stuff. And the riffs,
were you like a 15-year-old kid and you heard like Panama or something like that?
You know, it was even younger than that. My parents, luckily, when I first started getting into it, they were like, you need to listen to Carlos Santana, Eric Clapton, and Eddie Van Halen.
And that's my stuff,
Yeah. And
I love Carlos. That's why I have a Paul Reed Smith.
And so I got it. What's interesting is I got into Carlos, got into Eddie Van Halen, and then the natural connection between that for me was Al Di Meola. So I went because I loved all that fast stuff.
Just by the way, Al Di Meola, I was a freshman at Berklee. This is early 70s. And it was like October, right? And he was my age, And he's playing with Return Forever, Chick Corea. Yeah. And again, I saw him, I go, maybe I ought to look into Northeastern down the street because I can't do that. I can't do that.
He was such one of the big reasons why I went to Berklee, because I saw that he went and I saw that Steve Vai went. But I remember there's something about Al Di Meola where it was just the sound, everything about it was just, He had all these, all the. He was doing something so cool, and it was like a blend to me. It seemed like a blend of Eddie Van Halen and Carlos Santana. The speed of Eddie, the coolness of Carlos, and all in one. So that was a huge.
And you
huge
think
moment.
of those three guitar players, Demiola, Santana, and Eddie Van Halen, totally different.
Oh yeah,
Totally different. Is one better than the other? Again, this is art. This is not the 4-minute mile. The guy who runs 3:58 beats the guy who was 4:01. And I used to be a miler, so I was not I was sub 5. I was not bad in high school. Went to the championships in '73, but that sports are very different. This is art. You know, it's. I mean, I love sometimes Stephen Stills with some of the things he did. It's just, it depends on what mood you're in, and everybody's different. And that's why I rail against these. I don't want to go on tangents. We only got a few minutes in. We'll jam out. Some of the game show stuff, like the American Idol and that stuff. It's like art is not a game show. It's not a contest.
Yeah.
You know, these three guitar players you just talked about are just as valid as one or the other. There's no such thing. Is Picasso better than Rembrandt? Duh.
No, yeah.
So let's.
I'm with you
so
100% on
again,
that.
goals. You want to keep on doing that, and I agree with that. And you're teaching quite a bit. Both you and I teach at Highland Conservatory. Dave Carroll, that's a plug for you.
Yep.
And that's a great place. That's by far the best place I've seen for that. I mean, I wish I had something like that. I mean, when I was a kid, I don't know, we didn't have anything, man. It was listen to the record and lift it, and keep on lifting back and forth. Now there's the YouTube and all that stuff to show exactly. We used to just have, I think our ears were better back then.
I agree.
But Highland is such a great place, and you've been teaching there for a while now.
Yeah,
right?
I was one of the first guys there. Dave started the place, asked me to come along, and I've been friends with Dave for a while as well, and I said, absolutely. You know, his teaching method is so good. Like you said, it's one of these things where...
And I've played in a band with him. He's a great guy, great sax player, and he's actually a very good guitar player.
I didn't know that either for a long time.
He teaches guitar there.
Yeah, and he's good with the loop pedal, and I've
been doing a lot with loops lately. Because I play by myself.
Yeah.
So we got to wrap up. So do you have a website? How can people follow you?
Okay, you can follow me on Instagram at JPaolilli, J Paolilli, or you can find me on Facebook, same name, or YouTube, like I mentioned earlier, same thing. So that's where to follow me. I'm doing a lot of gigs, playing a lot, hanging with guys like Bill, playing great guitar players. So if you like good music, good guitar playing, come on out.
So we're going to just jam out on a G minor thing.
Sure.
Yeah.